What is intermittent fasting and how can it help you rejuvenate your health and improve your energy levels? Hey, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I wanted to share with you my experience with intermittent fasting and how it's helped me kind of get a little bit more control over emotions and energy levels, and ultimately some interesting things that I've noticed. And this will be a very frank video. So I'm going to share with you kind of my journey, but this is not a medical recommendation. In fact, you should work with a medical doctor or some existing system when it comes to fasting or limiting caloric intake. Now, I'm not doing this for weight loss. I'm not doing this for anything other than part of my meditation routine. And what I've learned from a number of cultures, if you're not familiar, I study religions and cultures. And ultimately, what I found in a number of religions and cultures is that they use fasting as a means of reconnecting yourself with your creator or your experiences. But this is not meant to be woohoo aesthetic stuff. The medical value of fasting is that it allows your system to have time to cleanse itself, to clean out. It gives your stomach a chance to finish digesting food. One of the major problems with Americans and people in general in what we call the civilized world is that there's so much food. There's more food. I can sit down and eat a whole giant pint of ice cream in one sitting and then go back to the store and buy another one. Scarcity is not a thing in America, in Europe, or anywhere. So what we're doing is we're bombarding our body with a lot of food, and that food isn't necessarily higher in nutritional value. So one of the things that I wanted to do to improve my emotional and my mental experience was to look at some traditional practices of fasting. In the Bible, they talk about 40 days of fasting. Islamic and Hebrew traditions have, or Jewish traditions have, a period of fasting every week. Hindu religions have this, and I figure, well, look, if all these religions have this in their system, how can I benefit from it? So I talked with a medical doctor. Okay, this is very important because if you have low blood sugar, diabetes, hypoglycemia, if you have other types of issues or disorders, if you have problems with your lymph nodes or anything like that, fasting may not be the right thing for you. I also approached it very incrementally. So I started with what they call incremental fasting. Basically, I try to eat dinner around 5 or 6 o'clock, and then I don't eat again till the next day, almost 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So I have 13 hours or so where there's no food intake. Now, of course, during that time, you can drink water, herb teas, and sometimes if I'm hungry, which you will feel hungry from time to time, and in a first world nation, feeling hungry is weird. But ultimately, if you feel hungry, you can have a bone broth or different kinds of broths. Now, again, I'm not prescribing to you a solution. I'm sharing only my experiences, which are going hungry is not a bad thing. In fact, if it's late at night, what I used to do is sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream or something like that, and then I would go to bed, and then that dairy product would be in my gut all night long, fermenting, and then I'd have gas, and I'd have digestive issues, and I'd have other challenges that were just really not sightly or odoriferous, a lot of smell. But ultimately, what I'm sharing is we need to give our bodies a chance to recover from the foods that we're taking in. And we also want to look at the quality of the foods we're taking in. So if you're hungry and your first response is to shove something in your face, it's not always the best quality of food. And I'll give you a warning about fasting too. Actually, today I haven't eaten since yesterday about probably 8 o'clock at night. So yesterday was kind of late. I started fixing food about 7:30 or so, and I ate at night. And I had to, in my thought is, what foods are right for me to eat now that are going to best serve me over the night? So I had, I frankly don't remember what I ate yesterday. I think I had some cottage cheese and an egg on it, unless that was breakfast yesterday. I don't really remember, but this isn't about improving your memory. This is ultimately about making good food choices and about allowing your body to rest. But needless to say, it is now 4 o'clock in the evening, and I haven't eaten for at least 12 hours. I'm not sure I'm doing the math right there, but again, I'm just, it's a stream of conscious presentation to just share with you basically the intermittent fasting of 13 to 15 hours between meals, focusing your meals between 8 a.m. or some kind of 4-hour feeding window is actually pretty interesting. First off, your body starts to digest more of the food that you already have in your system. You will, in some cases, restrict calorie intake, but in other cases, you will have the same number of calories, just eaten in a more focused window. My body will remove waste, so you end up peeing a lot, and you end up taking massive solid dumps. Okay, I don't know that that's the most appropriate thing, but I'm sharing from my experience, and it's basically your body's just basically processing the food that's in there. One of the challenges that I've had in the past is I'll just keep putting food down there until you end up with indigestion or you feel overly stuffed. When you're fasting, that goes away because you start to respect the food better. So rather than getting empty calories, rather than just shoving something in my face, rather than keeping sweets in the house, my mind has kind of said, you don't need it. Being hungry isn't that big of a deal. In fact, people around the world are hungry all the time, and it's dangerous in their cases. Again, I'm not looking for weight loss. I'm just looking for clarity of mind. I often find that once you've settled on a routine, in my case, it's 5 to 6 p.m. eating a meal. And again, I'm not rigid on that routine because your day might vary. But once you settle on that routine, you can start building out that into the day, that as I lay myself down to sleep type of thing, where you've eaten and now maybe you're going to clean up around the house. You're going to relax and socialize with family. And then you're going to start that sleep routine so that when you sleep, you don't have anything weighing in on you. So imagine you eat a steak and then at 9 p.m., a lot of people in America have dinner at 8, 9 o'clock at night. Now, if you're in different climates, by the way, it may be better to eat late at night because of the temperature and go to bed later. But again, we're not talking about that. I'm just sharing my experiences. What I found is if I had a heavy meal at lunch or dinner, then at night I would be wrestling with that meal. Legs are kicking and the food is just, it's fermenting down there. So essentially, when I started doing the intermittent fasting, I chose to have a earlier dinner time. So right after I finish work, 5:30, 6 o'clock, I'm sitting down to a meal. I felt it was better to think about that and plan it because getting off at work at 5 is not always an easy thing to do. Because if you have a commute or traffic, you need to plan that meal. So at lunchtime, I plan my dinner meal. So it might be throwing some things in a crock pot. It might be prepping meals, or on a Sunday, I'll prep out meals. But what the fasting has done is made me more deliberate about the foods that I maintain on stock in the house, but also how I plan my meals out, because it's now, I know I can survive without eating. And I've gone as long as 72 hours without any solid food. Now, again, smoothies and broths and soups and stuff like that is actually food. And I don't, in a 24-hour fast or a 48-hour fast, have any of that stuff. But ultimately, if you're going over time, again, you want doctor supervision and you want, or some professional supervision, and you want to not invent. Like, why would I benefit? How would I benefit from a 40-day fast? No food for 40 days. In fact, most religions and cultures that use 40-day fasts, they actually do eat food. They have rules about when you can eat food. Like during different holiday seasons, you can only eat food after the sunset, and then you have to eat food before it. But while the sun is up, you're not eating food at all. That tends to happen in the season where there's the least amount of sunlight. But ultimately, my point being is, pick an established system, talk with your medical doctor before you do this, and then observe the system in reverence and observation of your body's response. So in my case, initially I was hungry and it was uncomfortable to be hungry, and I had to have the mental acceptance that, look, I can go without food for a few hours. People around the world go without food for a few days. Okay, now it doesn't make it good or bad at what I'm doing, but ultimately, what is my relationship with the food itself, and am I putting good food in my body? So there are times where I'm hungry, so I don't eat at fast food restaurants. I tend to focus on mom and pop restaurants, but I'll eat at a mom and pop greasy spoon any day of the week. Man, you pour that gravy up over those mashed potatoes and get me some corned beef or something, I'm going to eat it. But the thing of it is am I being respectful to my body? Am I being respectful to the food itself? And am I putting into my body nutrients that are of high value? So if I do have a greasy meal like that, I'm putting in a lot of fat. Where am I getting my minerals from? Where am I getting my other essential nutrients, including phytochemicals and digestive enzymes, that kind of thing? Now, one of the things I found out is that if you have good digestive enzyme levels, and you can do this through a supplement. In fact, if you write with questions, I've got additional resources. If this is a topic of interest when it comes to your homestead, small farm, or estate. But if you are eating homegrown vegetables that are organically raised, and you have the proper nutrient supplements in your system, and you have the good level of digestive enzymes, which I did not have when I started fasting originally, you often will find that the food goes much further. So again, you're eating more vegetables, so you're eating more fibrous foods. When you eat meats, you're eating smaller portions. When you are eating fruits and vegetables and stuff, you're not just drinking the juices, which are high in sugar, you're actually getting all those fibers in there as well. You're going to find that your system, the bulk of your waste, the quality of your hydration, all of that goes much higher. And it seems that less food goes further. Now, again, there's higher calorie density in meats than there are in vegetables. I was a vegan for 4 years. Was a vegan. Raw foods, vegan. Only ate raw food. You'd have to eat a salad bowl as big as my upper body in order to get enough calories in each day. But ultimately, your choices of food and the quality of that food drive the quality of your health, just like fuel in a vehicle, in the proper maintenance of the vehicle. And I am seeing the fasting as a maintenance tool to kind of get you a check with reality that it's okay to be hungry. I used to, I was hypoglycemic. I still am. Sometimes I'll get hangry. If I'm getting hungry, I got to get something to eat right away. I got to monitor blood sugar. But ultimately, being hungry and then downing some ice cream or eating some chocolate is not the right approach, because it surges your sugar levels and messes with insulin. By fasting and then deliberately inducing our what's called the breakfast, by breaking the fast in an appropriate means, I find that I'm eating heavier protein breakfasts and more calories at breakfast, and then lunch is light and dinner is light, and I find that within that smaller window, I get more than enough nutrients that I'm not suffering. Now, when you're fasting, what you will notice is that your mental clarity is way up there. You are more aware of your situation and your surroundings, and you're ultimately a little bit deeper in your thinking. And that could be, and I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but that could be because your body's saying, we're probably going to need some food here soon. Be on the lookout for food and opportunities. Be on the lookout for that next meal. Now, again, I adapted that into meal planning and how I shop at the grocery store. And we've talked about pantry management in the past, but my readily available foods are not highly processed. And for example, if I were to go get a snack right now, because I felt I was too hungry that I couldn't wait till food got produced, I could eat nuts and raisins, so dried fruit and some kind of nut. And so that's more... It's healthier for you than eating a protein bar or a snack shake. Because sometimes in the past, I'd blend up a smoothie, and I would down that smoothie, and I didn't allow enough time for the hunger to taper off. Okay, because it's got to go down in your stomach, and then the enzymes got to break it down to make it nutrients available to the rest of your body, and then ultimately the absorption starts, and then that's when the hunger feelings end. I became more aware of my body itself, but that higher level of energy, if I put it into productive activities, such as recording a podcast like I'm doing right now, I don't really feel that hunger. I'm not disrupted by the hunger. I am hungry right now, by the way, but I'm not hungry in a way that I feel like I got to stop what I'm doing and go get something to eat. What I do feel though is that I'm more in tune in what's going on. So if I was in a survival situation, I would find that mental clarity would help me address shelter, clean water, and then food, rather than going straight for the food that may not be available to you in a ready situation. So what I'm looking at is a more primitive mental mindset, but that's because I'm fascinated by how people think and how societies and groups organize. But ultimately, if I'm hungry, if I was working out in the garden right now, I would snack on the vegetables from the garden. And I would find that would be just a small amount would be more than enough to alleviate any type of hunger. But my energy levels are way up there. I feel like I got more energy. I feel like I got more results. Now, again, if that's a biological response to a fear of starvation, which can happen if you fast for long periods of time, your body can go into a state where it stores all the energy into fat because it knows you might need it in the future. So again, you ease into these things. You use whether it's part of your religious practice, part of a meditation practice, you do this mindfully, but you're going to end up with more energy. You're going to end up with that first constitutional or, the first dump of the day is going to be basically well processed and nice and clean out the system. I'm trying not to be disgusting with this, but in the past, how about this? When you go into a public bathroom, you will smell and see what is typical for Americans. Nasty, sticky, ugly. I don't have to put the poop chart up here to tell you that when you fast, it gives your body an opportunity to process the materials. When you're more mindful about what you put into your body, you create garbage in, garbage out. If you put more high fiber, quality nutrients into your body, you're going to put out waste that is not toxic and not, tearful to your eyes. Now, again, there's legitimate reasons why this happens. Some people have lactose intolerance, and when the way things are processed in their body produces stinky waste, like eating asparagus makes your pee stink. But my point being is that when you slow down, and I think this is why the slow food movement is going to save so many people so much frustration. When you slow down and you're more thoughtful about what you eat, and you have a routine where you're not eating all of the time, you give yourself the opportunity to have better clarity. Now, when I was a vegan, I could taste better. Things tasted great. I could get out of the car, run around a football field twice, and get back in the car and not even be out of breath. That's not the case today. Now, I'm not saying veganism is good, because there were nutrient deficiencies, there were stresses on my body that were not appropriate, and there were times where I was getting so few calories that you would get into a delirious state. So one thing I have found with the longer term fasting is you go from mental clarity to mental confusion. And this is because your brain is not getting the glucose and the nutrients necessary to keep it functioning. So you have to be mindful of what you're doing. I see a lot of videos online that praise fasting as like a more of a religious prospect without actually observing the lessons learned in religion. Now, I can see where somebody might fast and then have that euphoric feeling that comes with not having food for a long period of time and find that more beneficial in their prayer or their meditations. But really, it's not good for your system to be doing that. I found my skin was more clear. I had better hair growth. Not that this beard alone is due to fasting, but the hair grows super fast and it's much stronger. I have, again, like I said, more energy. I'm not as concerned if I am going without food for a couple hours. I'm making better choices. Now, some of these better choices have conflicts and impact because when you start realizing some of the things that are going on in the world around you, excuse me, and you're more mindful of the situations around you, you will make decisions that are not always appreciated by other people. But again, if you're working with a medical doctor, you will improve your health, and you will do what's appropriate for your body, bringing in more quality over quantity, allowing your system to resolve itself. So I used to have eczema, which is that cleared up. Some of the muscle pains I used to have cleared up. I didn't take really good care of my body over the entire life. Most of the time I work and sit in a chair too long. But ultimately, the routine of fasting and the yin and yang of eating and not eating has connected to other quality of life elements that have really been of value to me. And that's why I'm sharing this message. Now, again, I'm not telling you what kind of food to eat. I'm not telling you whether you should diet or not diet. And I'm not even saying you should fast or not. I'm simply sharing my experiences. Now, an opportunity to fast in a controlled environment could be a survival class or an outdoor activity such as hiking, where you really are, you're moving and you really don't have the opportunity to eat. You can also, instead of fasting, is to start narrowing down your food intake cycles, and then within that food intake, do more of a grazing than sit down for specific meals. Now, I like to sit down for dinner with my family. I like to have specific types of meals planned in advance so that I can enjoy the food and the flavor. But you could find that if you're very busy and you're not able to sit down, is to make some conscious decisions about when you start eating in the day and when you stop eating, and then what kinds of foods you put in and what kind of fuel you're using. So, are you eating a variety of food, or are you eating the same thing all the time? My brother ate tuna fish and crackers every day for lunch for 10 years. It was just an easy thing to eat. It was had high protein, and it's what he needed for what he was doing when he's working out. The fasting I find to be an interesting experience, but it does need to be carefully monitored. So I recommend journaling. I recommend regular medical checkups. This is not an excuse not to get medical checkups, and to ultimately be more present in how you feed yourself. Another benefit is actually some past videos you can hear my nose gets all stuffed up, but I haven't had as many sinus issues as I had in the past. But again, while you're fasting, you are drinking liquids, primarily water. I don't drink sodas anymore. I haven't drinking sodas for years. I'll drink kefir, kombucha, fermented drinks, but I don't drink any. I don't drink like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or anything like that for a long time. But my point being is that you make available quality inputs. You narrow the focus down of your period of eating. You fit it within your schedule with pre-planning. So someone says to me, I don't have time for lunch and I eat at their desk all the time. Well, do you not have time to improve the quality of your health? Do you not have time to plan ahead? Because it sounds like one of the most important things in your life is being put aside for work. Now, I'm not saying work is not important. Work provides the means in order for you to get those things that you want. But are you really getting what you want? I found that the pattern of meditation gives me that opportunity. And yes, you'll have weird food cravings. You'll have, as your palate improves, you'll start noticing that everything's way too salty. And you'll start recognizing that and reducing your salt intake. You'll also find interesting new flavors. Like I love curry. Curry is incredible. Szechuan food's good too, which is different kinds of spice. I can taste the layers in the spices. But ultimately, again, it's a way to build discipline without a lot of risk. So you can start simply by choosing the time of your evening meal and then not having any meals after that. Choosing the time of your breakfast and not having any meals before that. And then, of course, meal planning. It helps with the efficiencies of grocery shopping. And then, as you'll see when you're a longtime subscriber of Prosperity Homestead, that a lot of these things are pretty normal historically when food was scarce, but ultimately provided a high quality of life despite scarcity of food. Despite the fact that they had to raise the animals themselves and labor to have quality foods, you tend to respect that food more. In fact, that's one thing that's interesting when you go without food for a little bit, is that you'll tend to respect the food better and have a different perspective on where your food is coming from. So for example, the majority of the time I'm doing daily 13-hour, 14-hour fasts. From time to time when I do a 24-hour fast, which is maybe once a month, you do get a interesting reflection on when I break this fast. I'm celebrating the opportunity that I have to have food, and ultimately I want the quality of the food to be as high as possible. So I just don't run out to a restaurant and get the daily special. I tend to prepare a meal that is worth the celebration. And then if you're going to celebrate your meals, why not share them with others? And I'm not sure if I'm clearly conveying it, but there is some spiritual reconnection by the observation of those things you put into your body, and then purposefully going without those things. It's rather interesting. I still enjoy a slice of cheesecake here and there. I definitely like sweets and things, but I don't crave them. And I ultimately, when I go out to eat at a meal, the entree is more than enough food. In some studies, it showed that your stomach will actually shrink in size. I could add more exercise. Yeah, I could add more physical activity. But ultimately, not plowing food in my face all day is a good thing. And ultimately, I know that, I don't have the angry thing anymore, the hangry anymore, that was related to my blood sugar levels. So I can maintain a cognitive awareness of my environment, maintain control over emotion, and still be hungry, but step into a planned break of fast for breakfast or a planned meal. Now, what's very interesting is that when you're doing this, is during your feeding time, you won't be hungry at all, and it does take less food to feel full, but it's more of a casual interaction with food with specific purpose to build your body up rather than just fill the hunger. Because when you realize hunger is just it's a natural thing. Everybody's hungry, and you stop masking that hunger by readily available foods, you find there's some interesting things going on in this world. And in fact, the world is way better than you think it is, or way better than the news will portray it to you. And that clarity of thinking is why it's so important to understand your living conditions. So when we talk about small farms, homesteads, or estates, that's really the core of being food secure, being a community, and being connected in the culture of improvement. So I hope what I've shared has been interesting. I'm being a little bit vulnerable in sharing this because for some people it's pretty weird. For some Americans it's weird, but my friends in India and friends who have other Abrahamic belief systems or such, this is a normal thing, by the way. The celebration around a meal, the acceptance of hunger and the thankfulness when you're able to have food is actually pretty common in places that are not industrialized. It's almost like the industrial food system is designed to put you on an IV where you have a slow trickle of consumption rather than the feast and famine that is the real world. And so when I interact with somebody in Africa who their cell phone is the only technology device in the entire village, or I study a culture that has not interacted with the industrial world, you very often find that they have very simple systems to maintain good mental capacity, good physical capacity, and conservation of resources, which in effect creates more resources. So again, we could talk about these things at another time. I would love to answer your questions. Fasting goes into it can drive into the value of human manure or the recycling of nutrients, the ultimate value of growing your own garden, how to know what foods are quality and which ones are not. But again, I just want to give you my perspective on fasting. I believe it's great. Always work with some kind of supervision because children cannot fast the way adults can. Somebody who's really skinny can't fast as well as somebody who's got some bulk to them. And ultimately, there are complex exceptions that you need to be aware of from a medical perspective. But fasting has been proven to improve medical conditions, to improve mental alertness and awareness. And in moderation, it is going to help your body more than it's going to hurt your body because it gives you a chance to digest the food that you've already intaked and have an accurate measure of when food is necessary. It's centuries old, and it's proven technology in a sense that often in the industrial world we forget because, there's food everywhere. Most of it is not any good for you, but it's everywhere. And this is one way to combat it. So thanks for listening. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I want to invite you to ask your questions at www.prosperityhomestead.org. That's all one word. And I'm going to continue to answer your questions and deliver to you permaculture, homesteading, the value of building up a community around what you're doing, and that benefit, that mutual value to the relationships in your life. Thanks for listening.